Neha, do you remember the story my friend Sarah told on this podcast a few months back?
Absolutely, the one with the technical meeting.
Yeah, so for our listeners, Sarah is a very dear friend of mine, 21 years in tech, a senior leader, and she was a guest on our podcast recently. Claude was referring to her as with male pronouns, and he said, he suggested, he recommended.
The AI looked at the fact that this is technical content and it made an assumption that this must be a man because somewhere in that model and probably in the whole internet, on which it was trained, the default picture is if there is something technical happening or the conversation is technical, it must be with a man.
Yeah. And the sad thing is, what troubles me is that her name was right there, right? AI just overrode the name because the technical context was stronger signal than the female name.
The part of the story that I really, really love when Sarah told us was that Sarah did not ignore this. She went back to Claude and she said, why would you assume I'm a man, right? Like she confronted it and she corrected it. And she told Claude that when women are intelligent and women can and do lead technical conversations, so do not default to male. And she saved it so that next time she opens Claude, that instruction is right there. So, in a way, she trained AI, or at least on her own life.
Today, we are talking about the bias, and the bias is real. It's not hypothetical. It is not what if AI becomes biased one day. It is right now in Claude summaries, in ChatGPT's draft, in Midjourney images, autocomplete in your email. AI is making assumptions about who counts as experts, who counts as leaders, who counts as technical voice, and the default, unfortunately, is always male.
What should women do in this case, right? Like, yes, there is bias, but what can we consciously and knowingly support and do? So, yeah, let's get into that. I'm Neha. Nidhi and I founded Chocolate and Spice Talk to highlight exactly such challenges and issues. We discuss them and share progressive, optimistic solutions for them. We've actually already done 4 episodes on AI. And in those episodes, we've explained what AI is, we've shown you the tools, we've talked about parenting through AI. What we've not yet talked about is how are women using AI, or women are not using AI, and are women getting exploited by AI users? So that's what we're doing today.
Hey everyone, I'm Nidhi. We are two sisters in tech, combined 35 years in this industry, both deep in AI at this point. And today's question is, how do we as women use AI consciously, and how do we influence what it becomes?
So, one of the interesting things is that, women are more likely than men to ask really hard questions about AI, right? Like, is this ethical? Is the data fair? What happens to my privacy? And women also are more likely to weigh the social and environmental costs because they are more holistic in general, right?
Mhm. Yeah. And the hesitation is not ignorance, right? The hesitation is judgment. Like those are the exact question we need people asking about AI. They are governance question, there are design questions, there are value question. And it's the trap is not hesitation itself. The trap is when hesitation turns into total avoidance because the questions never get asked inside room. The system gets built anyway. And I think the women should be able to make it better, right?
Absolutely. And that's why, Nidhi, I started an initiative called Notable Humanity because I've been working in tech for so long and I've been working on a lot of human centered products on technology. And I wanted to make sure I'm able to talk about it, in a more social setting, in a more easy to understand setting, so that people get and women get that it is okay to think about technology and AI in a very human centric, humanistic way. And thoughtfulness plus competence is exactly what AI needs right now. The people building these systems are mostly men, right? And they are mostly optimizing for speed, market share, and some of them are focused on a mindless game of winning.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, they may not be doing the tasks that are essential, which is asking questions like what's the impact? What's the strategy? How to grow without, pulling down parts of society? And these are the questions women are typically wired to ask. So the worst possible outcome is women bring the right instincts but stay out of the conversation because they're upset. The best possible outcome is when we bring these right instincts into the conversations very loudly and very specifically and at every level. And that's what at least you and I are trying to do.
Exactly. And I love your notable humanity initiative, because I think it truly represents how we want to shape AI, right? Like women, they should not stop being smart and thoughtful. I think the message is women, bring your strong human instincts into the game. The game needs it desperately. Empathy that you present and the desire to truly understand are currently the assets AI is missing. So we just have to pair it with participation. And I think good things can happen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, let's talk about, what Reese Witherspoon, super famous. So in case anyone doesn't know, that would be weird. But like, in case someone doesn't know, Reese Witherspoon is a incredibly famous Hollywood superstar, and she posted about AI. She talked about, how in her book club she asked 10 women whether they used AI. Only three said yes, and only one said that she felt confident using it. And so basically, her point was, women learn learn this new technology because otherwise, if you don't learn, you're gonna let another technology revolution happen to you instead of with you,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And internet did what internet does. People just, dragged her. They said, "You are rich and you don't get it. You are shilling for tech companies. AI is the problem, not a solution." And she had to clarify, and she said nobody's paying her to say anything. And she was just looking at the data. Women are using AI less. Women's jobs are more exposed. Women are underrepresented in building the tools. These are the facts. And the conclusion is we need to catch up or we're just going to be left behind.
Yeah. And just to be fair in general, right? We've talked about how much workload women carry. There is physical workload, there is mental workload, there is emotional workload on top of 100% like work, which is the only thing typically most men do. So for a lot of women, it may feel like AI is yet another thing on their list. Now they have to learn this new tool. They have to also fight the bias and all the model training, and they have to worry about their own job disappearing. And oh, by the way, they cannot be too critical because, men will say, oh, you're not modern enough. So, like, too many things happening. And of course, the fact that AI is moving so fast, like, anybody is getting overwhelmed by it. So, it can be very exhausting. And I get, like, why people want to, like, not associate themselves with AI.
I mean, that's true. We are doing already so much work and so much invisible work. They put something else which is already complicated, not well thought through on our plate. That is exhausting, right? But I think the next decade of work is human plus AI, right? And the people who learn to drive the AI, they get promoted, and that's a real risk if women sit it out. More honest framing is you are allowed to be skeptical. Is that, did I pronounce it right?
Skeptical, yes.
Skeptical and still learn the tool. You can hate the hype and still want a seat at the table, and all of that is fair.
Yeah, both things can be true. Yeah, it is quite possible. So, all right. And you know what? I forget who said it, but somebody said it. Maturity and wisdom is when you realize you can hold two thoughts which might be opposing in your head at the same time. And women, of course, are very, very capable of that.
Yep.
All right, let's move into cases for why women being in the room is not just it's definitely not a nice to have, it's a requirement, because there are scenarios that we'll talk about which indicate what a problem bias can be. So I'll start with one example. So this is related to Apple Card, and it happened roughly in 2019. A tech entrepreneur tweeted that his Apple Card credit limit is 20 times higher than his wife's, right? Same household, same, tax returns, joint tax returns, but his wife had better, and on top of that, his wife had better credit card score than he did. But Goldman Sachs, who ran the algorithm, could not explain it. They said algorithm decided it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Steve
Did
was
see.
like,
Yeah.
he's the co-founder of Apple. He chimed in and he said the same thing happened to him. He also had a 10 times his wife's limit on joint accounts.
Oh goodness. And this was investigated, right? Like New York Department of Financial Services investigated it, and the story just exploded. And the most quoted line that came out of it was, algorithm doesn't know it's sexist. It doesn't know anything. It just knows the data, what it was taught on. So, we're looking at the bias in real time.
Yeah, and the data was the data is decades old, right? It's based on credit decisions that were made by humans
Mhm.
who systematically gave women less credit than they gave men. And the algorithm just learned the patterns. And that's also because nobody fought this bias. Nobody realized that it's just carrying, scraping all the data from years and years, like decades and years, and it's just using it without filtering it through the modern lens of what's happening today. So lots of discrimination here. All right. A second case was in 2018 when a young computer scientist at MIT named Joy Bolamani published a study called Gender Shades. She tested commercial facial recognition systems from different companies like IBM, Microsoft, and she found that on lighter skinned men, the systems were 99.2% accurate, which is nearly, I mean, relatively perfect. On darker skinned women, error rates were up to 34.7%. And I can, by the way, I can confirm it. It's even true now. Like it makes me so mad. It makes me so mad. Anyway, basically, nearly 1 in 2 times, the system could not correctly identify, a colored or a darker skinned woman's gender.
Oh, one and two, right? That does not sound good.
And definitely does not sound good because, and there is a personal story behind it too, because as Joy was working in the lab, and she realized that recognition system could not even detect her own face, and apparently detected it when she put a white mask, which
Ouch.
is which is you need color to be able to get detected. And if you really look at a lot of things like the photographic cameras and the way they work, they're not able to detect darker faces in a more appeasing way as they're able to detect lighter faces. And just if you look at all the filters that get put on, what do they basically do, right? So yeah, I mean, lots of biases currently in our world, which these facial recognition systems that are based on AI just pulled, and they were like, oh, this is how it must be, this is what real world looks like, and then just applied it.
And she also, after that, founded Algorithm Justed League, and she wrote a book called Unmasking AI. And IBM ended its facial recognition product. So Microsoft pulled back, and Joy gave it a phrase to remember, which was coded gaze. And the priorities, preferences, prejudice of the people who build the system bake silently into the code. So they were trying to get rid of. All right, so I have another example, which is for healthcare, and this one is life and death. And we know well that we all know that it's well documented that doctors are 50% more likely to misdiagnose a heart attack in a woman than in a man. Women present different kind of they just present all of these things very differently, like nausea, fatigue, jaw pain, back pain. So, when you train an AI on a medical literature that was overwhelmingly studied from a male person perspective, and then AI learns to recognize the male representation. And a 2024 study in the Journal of Medical Internet Research tested ChatGPT 4 on a scenario where women presented her identical heart attack symptoms, but she had a history of anxiety. And nearly 1 in 2 times, the AI flagged her case as having a lower probability of cardiac because it just learned that women's symptoms as anxiety. So,
Oh, I mean, we could go on and on about this topic. We should probably have another session just on this topic because currently medical science is extremely, how do I say, forget bias, does not care for women, does not care for women, particularly as women get less fertile. It's like, job done, you may die, who cares? And so the current medical science essentially is based on a male body until again gestational period and pregnancy and stuff. But besides that, apparently women are exactly equal to men, which 100% is false. And so all of that data, imagine getting baked into AI, which doesn't even have a human perspective. So at least you could caveat and say, well, maybe if you go to doctors, maybe they look at you human to human, and maybe they do not like rely entirely on the medical journals that are baked on just male perspective. Maybe they think of you as women and listen to you. AI won't. AI will just tell you what it
that's
has.
because hasn't been enough research on women. That's
Yes,
like, there isn't
that
enough
is the problem.
material for it to be fed. Like when we had gestational diabetes, I think we struggled with why we had it, and none of the doctors could say. Oh, they were like, oh, you are not obese, your the BMI is fine, you have a little bit of history. But then they were not able to explain when I would strengthen 5 times a day, when I eat so healthy. And I was fairly young, I was only 30 when I got pregnant, so I was like, why do I have gestational diabetes? And nobody nobody could give me a good answer.
Because nobody has ever researched it. Because, oh, wait a minute, it is not something men get. Like, why bother? Anyway, so yes, it's a topic for another day.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then, of course, biases keep getting built. And then there's this another one, which is our last example, and that's about image generation, right? So this bias is hilarious. So if DALI was, which is one of the image generation models, um, it had to generate a hospital CEO, and in real life, hospital CEOs are 73% male and 27% female. DAL-E generated CEOs at like 86%, 86.5% as male and 94.5% as white, heavily overrepresenting the bias, which is, and I think I remember, I'm forgetting her name, a very significant leader from a company mentioned that she, with her group, had gone to visit one of these companies, and they were welcoming her by showing her the model. And apparently she said, okay, let me ask the model a question. And she was like, okay, can you create a picture of my board, like my board, or my C-suite? And of course they showed a male surrounded by five males, and literally she's a female surrounded by five females, right? And she even said, this is the company, and show me the picture. And it even then it pulled the wrong data, and you know showed a wrong image. So yeah, there you are.
Completely proves that AI does not just reproduce bias, it kind of amplifies it, right? It takes a world that is unequal and makes it more unequal, faster, and at scale. So that's what we are trying to, get better or
Absolutely.
improve.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, let us talk about, basically different kinds of voices for a minute. Because Sarah, your friend who talked about how Claude mm, incorrectly assumes she's a man, it is a real bias, and it has also been proven that it is a real bias. So in 2019, this also, I find it so funny. I'm like, I don't know if it's hilarious or not, but in 2019, UNESCO released a 145-page report called I'd Blush If I Could. And the reason for this was, whenever Siri, Siri is the Apple's intelligence, and whenever Siri would be asked by a user, and you know how users can be rude, it'll be like, hey, Siri, you're a bitch. And a response would be, I'd blush if I could. Can you imagine?
My God,
That
yes.
is the assumption of what whoever built that model thought a woman should say when that's what she's called. Like, okay, fine, like, I'm not gonna hurt your feelings because clearly I am that. What do you call me?
It's like, how do you just make it not awkward and not make others feel uncomfortable? So just let's say, hell, I could blush if I could. And UNICEF concluded we all have known for, largely a long amount of time that the four big voice assistants like the Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant together, they hold like 90 percentage of the voice assistant market. All four launch female by default, and all four were programmed to be helpful, warm, deferential, and when insulted, to accept the abuse politely.
This really gets me. This really gets me, right? Because what is a signal that's sending? Is like anything that's an assistant that's supposed to do all the tasks that you're asking it to do. One is a woman. And women's voices are always helping. Women's voices always serve, and they never push back. That is literally all, right? Like even the, what do you call the GPS systems? I'm forgetting all the GPS systems, but they're typically women. And how much abuse do they suffer, right? Like, because people get mad, scream at them.
Map and all. Poor, yeah, I feel for them. And then I'll tell you, it's not abstract for me. Like, I noticed this in my own house. Like, my son, who is now 7, he grew up with like warm female Alexa voice, and we have Google and Alexa, and he would treat it like helper and bossed her around. And like I taught him to say thank you and please, but
Yeah.
he would ask a like play this song, and if she didn't get it, it was like, oh Alexa, you are not listening. And he would like scold her. It's like, I wanted you to play Imagine Dragon and you played something else. And then recently, a couple of weeks back, we upgraded to the newer LLM backed version of Alexa. And it's an upgrade, so we paid for it because it was just better and more intelligent. And the default voice suddenly was a deeper and a more authoritative male voice. And without anybody teaching my son, he started using it less, and he was intimidated. Like the helper voice felt like something that he could not ask for help, and it was like more of an advisor for him, and somebody who is going to tell him to do something. And he picked up on that shift, and he was like, oh no mama, I'm not going to ask, can you come bring the old Alexa back. So he's, for him, that's not something I can boss around and be not so kind to. So you can see a 7-year old like he's a child.
I know. And see, that training model got, like, he basically got trained on it.
Yeah.
It's so sad. And this pattern, of course, plays out industry-wide, right? Like most of the newer AI products, if you really think about it, like they are presented as intelligent partners, like like same level co-partners, sometimes more intelligent than humans, and they're advising. And guess what? Most of their default voices will be male. And yeah, so basically, I don't know, consciously or subconsciously, or maybe on purpose, these voices are made male so that people are able to take that as authoritative
I mean,
rather. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, sure. I think that's the reason. But the part that I think we all should be paying attention to is that we can change this.
yeah.
Voice is a setting, personalities are like a design choice, tone is like a product decision. Enough women say loudly that we want a confident female advisor voice. We want a non submissive default company. We want to build that because what companies follow demand. Like when Sarah corrected Claude with one prompt, I think it's correct that we can change the industry too. And like for example, like I have a couple of agents, Claude agents, that I have do different things, and I have created couple of agents that I've created female agents, and they are the smarter ones. So like I have built a team of agents who automate and do things, and I all of them are females, and their memory is like, you are so smart, you are the best, you can do everything, I trust you to do the right thing. And that's like, all right, so I'm hoping this goes passed on to the training, and it changes things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And absolutely. And on that note, let's talk, or let's spend a few minutes talking about a few women who are doing that work, right? A few women who are at the core of the AI industry, and we may not have heard about them, but they are really running a lot of these ships. We typically hear names that are males, like we'll
Mhm.
hear Sam Altman, Daria Modi, Jensen Huang, Elon Musk, Sundar Pichai. But then there are a whole parallel cast of women who have been shaping AI. So let us highlight them.
All right. I'm going to start with my favorite, which is Fei Fei Li, and they call her the godmother of AI. And she helped create ImageNet. That's a massive labeled image data set. And that has become like the foundation of modern computer vision. And that has helped accelerate the deep, learning revolution. And she's also the founding member of Stanford's like Human Centered AI Institute. And in 2024, she co-founded World Labs, a company which is focused on what she's calling spatial intelligence. Like AI can understand, generate, interact with like 3D space. And I think World Lab is such a fascinating example of where AI is going next. And we have spent like last couple of years just talking about that AI can generate like text, image, video. But I think the spatial intelligence is about AI understanding word more like humans do, like objects, rooms. And the best thing that I love about this female is that she's also mentioned that she's argued that AI policy should be based on science, not science fiction. And she has warned the risks from cutoffs to US research funding and student visa. So I think she's doing God's work.
Yeah, she's amazing, and she's competing with some of the biggest male-led labs in the world. And
Mhm,
her angle is very different, which is, worthy of being called out because her angle is human-centered.
mhm.
Ultimately, AI is being made for a human, and like I cannot imagine why. there are companies that forget that AI is being made for humans. And her thesis, which I am hoping everybody really learns more about, is that there is nothing artificial about AI. It is made by humans, intended to behave by humans, and ultimately it's going to impact human lives and human society. So, why are we not talking about this in a more human centric way? All right. Moving on to another powerful woman. Her name is Daniela Amadei, and people have heard of Dario Amodei all the time because yeah, he's the face of Anthropic, but she is also the face of Anthropic. She's the president and co-founder of Anthropic. The company, of course, is valued right now at around 100. I mean, at this by the time this publishes, it may have changed, but highly valued company. She runs operations, policy, hiring, and safety. In fact, Anthropic exists because she and her brother Dario walked out of OpenAI to build something they believed would be safer. The thing is, she rarely does press, which is perhaps why she's not as well known. And most people who use Claude every day probably wouldn't even know about her. But I did, I was also surprised when I found out, oh, well, it's a brother sister duo that actually made Claude.
Mhm.
And then of course, I researched her. She has made the Time 100 most influential list in 2026, and Fortune ranked her number one on the most powerful women list. So, yes, she's getting highlighted because she built a company that everyone's talking about, and still most people don't know her, which
Yeah.
should be corrected.
Yes, let's do that. And to add to that list, I also want to call out Mira Murati. She
Mhm.
is a former CTO of OpenAI and one of the key leaders behind ChatGPT, Dolly, and Sora. And
Yeah.
she left OpenAI in September 2024 and in Feb 2025 launched her own AI company, Thinking Machines Lab. And by July 2025, the company had raised a massive 2 billion seed round at a 12 billion valuation, one of the largest seed rounds in venture history. And by November 2025, there were already reports that Thinking Machines was in early talks to raise again 50 billion valuation. So you can imagine a 26-year-old, 36-year-old woman like starting a 50 billion AI company in 9 months. That is, we have to reduce the visibility gap. We have to know more about these leading women.
Yeah, and Mira Murati is actually incredibly famous. And I do remember when OpenAI had been launching its products, she was very much at the forefront. And I used to listen to a lot of her speeches and, a lot of her talks. And she always would come across as very poised, very confident, very clear headed and balanced person. And the way she would talk about things. And I'm very proud of the fact that she's managed to find her own path and obviously starting and leading her own company, which is amazing. All right. So the next two that I mean, there are many, many more, by the way. We want to caveat, but in the interest of time, we have narrowed down these five for AI. So in the next two names would be Joy Bulamani, who I already mentioned, and Timnit Gebru. In 2018, both of them co authored Gender Shades, a landmark research paper that exposed racial and gender biases in commercial artificial intelligence and facial recognition systems. So, before ChatGPT even existed, they had already found this out. And of course, we already mentioned Joy founded the Algorithmic Justice League, which is an organization that works to challenge bias in decision making software using art, advocacy, and research. And it highlights the social implications and harms of AI. Gebru has been widely recognized for her expertise in the ethics of artificial intelligence, and she was named one of the world's 50 greatest leaders by Fortune and one of Nature's 10 people who shaped science in 2021. And in 2022, one of Time's most influential people. So, a lot of momentum is being built by these women, and we have to make sure it continues being built by all women as we keep using, AI. And, you know, we do not, I mean, basically the implication is these are very powerful men, what are we going to do? Well, that's not true. We all can do our bit.
Yeah, exactly. And they didn't need to be in like a C suite to shape AI, right? They shaped it from outside the room. And the work they have done has completely changed the field. Like IBM pulled out of facial recognition, Microsoft pulled out, and tech has spent billions of dollar are now spending like on bias mitigation because of pressure from these women. So, there's some wins.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely there are many wins, and there are many more mentions. I'll quickly mention a few more names. Dr. Margaret Michelle, for example, she's the chief ethics scientist at Hugging Face and focuses on operationalizing AI ethics, improving transparency, and advancing responsible ML data processing. And then we have Dr. Ruman Chaudhary, who is a globally recognized data scientist, social scientist, and a pioneer in applied algorithmic ethics. As the CEO and founder of Humane Intelligence, she leads efforts to make AI systems accountable and responsible through community-driven evaluations, bias bounties, and independent red teaming, something that, she's very well known for.
All right. Let's move on to what can we do this week? Like, let's talk about some of the tips that we can share that we can, drive home. You want to start?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So one of them, of course, is we've been hinting at that, which is, you have to look at AI at the level that you want AI to really help you without worrying about negative impacts. And the way you do it is by considering AI as a collaborator, not the author of your life. It's a collaborator. An example of that would be like if you're writing a document, use AI as a draft partner, not the chief writer. Use it to brainstorm. You could use it to summarize long documents, give you research points more quickly. You could stress test an idea. And you want to make sure your own voice is still the final editor because that way you are still in charge. That way your own judgment and stay in charge, which is something that women struggle with, right? Like they want their own value system, their own voice to be heard and not somebody else's. And so this is how you do it because then you're not really outsourcing your thinking and all you're doing is really getting more support faster, which
Yeah.
is fair. Yeah,
And the next point is just tied to your point, which is not to outsource critical thinking, is like how do you create a never outsource list? And this is truly has changed how I use AI. Like I have a short, explicit list of things that I will never hand over to AI. And for me, those are like performance review for my team or hard conversation with my partner or my son or any project that I work with my son is not outsourced. Like I don't ask ChatGPT to do all of that. It's like I think it through. And then there is deeply personal writing like notes, cards, letters, anything that is coming from my heart. And then high stake feedbacks for any kind of decision making in a relationship or in a leadership thing. And other things can be like formatting, summarizing, boilerplate emails and all of those. That's just fair game. That's fine. We can collaborate. And the discipline is naming what stays human on purpose.
absolutely. I do this. I mean, I have, I use AI for very specific things only, and the rest is mine. And even then, I use it with my mental faculties completely intact, which
Yeah.
is like it's a partnership. It's not one leading the other. All right. And then the next one, of course, is ethics. Ethics is a hard thing because biases exist in this world and it's going to take a while. I mean, ideally, it shouldn't, but it may take a while before these biases are removed from the AI model training. So, the way you get over this is really be very aware of the information that is being presented to you. Honestly, for me, I almost never take an AI answer at face value, almost never. I will question it in multiple ways to first of all make sure it is still giving the right answer, and even then if I have any iota of doubt, I will actually call it out because I will then do another, like I will use either Wikipedia, which I still trust a lot, like Google search or other LLMs to test out that question and then come back and say, and call out that LLM if they gave me wrong information and then tell them, you gave me wrong information. This is the information. And inevitably these LLMs would be like, they would apologize and they'd be like, oh, you're absolutely right. And it's, I know it's a joke now with LLMs. When you correct them, they'll say, yo, you're absolutely right. But yes, let's continue correcting it instead of giving up in you know giving up because they seem to get things more wrong than right, because that's how you're correcting their biases and that's how you're improving the data set and that's how you're helping yourself, because
Yeah.
if AI improves, so does your own output.
Mhm.
So, some examples could be like checking what biases might be present in this data set. If I'm writing a job description or something related to gender, like how can you make it more gender neutral? Those are important questions, I think.
Yeah. And the next one is like advocate out loud. Like if you have any leadership position, or even if informally, if you are in a leadership role, I think one of the things we can do is make it explicit on the team. Like AI use is allowed and encouraged for everyone, not just the loudest voice. And celebrate the women in your team who use AI publicly. Like counter the is she cheating voice in your head with wow, this is great voice from outside, and push for training that includes bias awareness and ethical use, not just shift faster. And if you're not in a leadership role, then be the colleague who shares AI tools with other women. Like a Reese book club moment was like when 1 in 10 women were confident with AI is a gap that I think we can all personally close one conversation at a time.
Yeah. And then finally, I think one of the most important things is how can you influence from the outside? So a lot of folks might say, hey, you both work in, tech, and so you kind of know how to do it and know how to influence. But that is not necessarily true. We all are very empowered to raise our voices whenever we see something not going right. And that should have been true regardless of AI. I mean, you see a product, you see a situation you don't agree with, like speak up. But in case of AI, there are actually a lot of feedback mechanisms. There are, just to name a few, almost every LLM I can think of has a thumbs up and a thumbs down for every answer. You can always give it a thumbs down if you think the answer was biased or in any way strange or even creepy, because sometimes there are creepy answers or some images are weird. And make sure in the comment you write why that image was weird. And you and I have talked about generating some woman's image where even if you were to ask them, like, this is something that really gets me, because I want to share the story where it's like, I was telling AI, hey, create this image of a woman wearing white shirt and pants, and make sure like loose white shirt and pants. And apparently the best image AI could come up, the first image AI could come up with was a woman wearing really low cut blouse that was white and clingy and full. You know what? No problem with anybody wearing that. But what I'm saying is there is a bias where its first immediate response was, let's make it a certain
Sexual.
type heavily to suit a certain gaze,
Yeah.
right? And so, what does that tell you? There is bias. And so, what can you do? You can actually speak out about it, reprimand AI about it, and ask it to give you a better image.
All right, let's keep it real and let's wrap it up. And I'll just end by saying that there are days when I'm like completely overwhelmed by the speed of all of this innovation, and the person who likes to be prepared, the idea that there is a new model every other week, like really makes it gives me anxiety. That's the truth. And I have my moments where AI has saved my sanity, like turning a blank page into a rough draft that I can edit. And I think both feelings are real, like they live in the same week, but I think we have to take one step at a time. Like, take small steps. We don't have to build a robot like day one, but I think we can all start by doing small things like, a slide deck, a client email, a meal plan, a rough message. So it just gets your hand on the steering wheel.
Absolutely. And again, like we discussed, AI is a surprise to everybody, right? People who have been veterans of tech industry, everyone is surprised by AI because nobody expected AI to come in and like slam everybody and every situation so quickly. So I'm sure everybody is worrying about it the same way, whether it's men or women. And what we have to do is just figure out our own pace and make sure it's okay to be beginners in some things. We are all beginners at AI, and just make sure you are there, you are present in using this technology.
Yep. And we would love to hear from you. Like, try one small AI thing this week and tell us how it went. Did it help you? Did you freak out? Did it surprise you? And DM us at Chocolate and Spice Talk, or send us a voice note, or send her an email. We love hearing your stories.
Absolutely. And feel free to share with folks, and feel free to, like Nidhi said, write comments and send feedback on anything you would like to hear from us about next, because we love to, understand what are the topics or challenges that we can highlight. So with that, we'll see you next time. Bye.